Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. Today we're going to talk with a beautiful young lady who basically knows what it means to use the word empowerment in our own life and to also pass that on to other women. Just women, let's call it what it is. When you talk about words like empowerment, you're talking male and female. It's not just one, and she's going to tell us how both of them work together. Let's welcome Melissa Crook, like a crook. She's getting ready to stick us up with all kind of information to the show. What's up, Melissa?
Oh, I'm good, Andre. How are you? I'm so glad to be with you today.
I am doing great. Before we get started, who exactly is Melissa Crook?
Melissa Crook is a woman that is in her 50s and that didn't figure out until about 6 years ago, the month of my 50th birthday, that in order for me to live healthy and authentically, I needed to connect with and process and allow myself to feel my emotions, heal from past traumas, see them as clues, know my own value, that I'm worthy of it, and take apart a lot of the stigmas and stereotypes and stories I was told as a little girl. And little boys are told the same stories very early on of how we're, quote, supposed to show up in the world, with sometimes not real opportunity to really be allowed to just be who we are. And so we go around and we grow up living by all of these other expectations that society and culture has told us we're supposed to be. And at some point, we have to kind of dismantle and take apart what it is that is aligning with that in the way we're living and what is not. And I had a crash and burn moment where I was clearly not living authentically out of what I was designed to be and what I truly believed. And so I had to heal and process and really get serious about emotions as clues rather than as inhibitors. And I had to quit stuffing and having shame around the ones that I was told weren't okay, that were too loud, that were not appropriate. And I think, yeah, go ahead.
Give me. Wow. And I get where you're coming from. I understand what I might call the Disney storybook scenario when it comes to society, girls. I understand the superhero syndrome as it comes to males. And we take this stuff literally into our traditional way of raising our children. And I get what you're saying. I'm glad you came on the show to explain how that affected you and you see it affecting other people. Give me an example of what it was like in your household that these traditional stories impacted you as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my household was pretty emotionally and mentally volatile. My parents didn't have the tools to know how to process and with their own emotions, let alone know what to do with the 4 kids that they had. But they also grew up in very traditional, what I call patriarchal systems, where this is a man's role, this is a woman's role. And so there was and we were also in faith spaces that very much presented it that way. So I was supposed to put everybody else before me. As the oldest daughter, it was my responsibility to take care of everybody else. And to challenge that in any way was selfish. And if I had started crying or feeling uncomfortable, I was told to dry it up or go to my room. There was no room or curiosity to feel emotions or to have sadness or anger. There was not room for it. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't proper. It wasn't, kind, all those kinds of things. And so
who stuck with the who enforced more of the emotional shutdown in your family? Was it your mom or was it your dad?
My dad. And my mom followed suit. And my mom's way of following suit and the way she expressed her frustration was a lot of yelling and screaming. So if we weren't doing the things that she knew were going to bother my dad or disrupt my dad, she'd start yelling and screaming at us. And I realized now it was her own fear of trying to keep the household in a way that wouldn't create disruption when he walked through the door. But it was also
with your grandparents, because let's go back. What were their parents like?
Well, my dad's family system was an absolute mess. I mean, he lost his dad in a logging accident when he was 5 years old. His mom was only 21 years old when this happened. She was 16 when she had my dad. And this was back in 1947 when he was born. And so through that, from the time he was 5 until she remarried the man who would raise him from 8 years old on, there were a lot of men in and out. There were a lot of abusive men in and out. And there was a lot of volatility. And then once she remarried who we became to call Papa, they had 2 more children together, but they moved a lot. So he was constantly the new kid in school. He was constantly being bullied. And also, he was the son of the husband before. So when he had siblings come along, he was very much treated as the other child instead of being just blended in, not so much by his stepfather, more by his mother, ironically. So a lot of moving. He went to like a bazillion different schools. So a lot of emotional volatility. He was pretty much on his own to support himself by the time he was 16. They told him he needed to start paying rent when he was 16 years old. At that point, he moved out and moved in with friends' parents. So very volatile. My mom came up in a household where she was an only child, but her mother had been sexually abused by her stepfather until she essentially ran away at 29 years old. 29 years old. And met my grandfather, and they snuck off and married. And so my grandmother, when there was no tools or resources to even, we did not know that my grandmother, we suspected, but we didn't know from her own mouth. She told us when she was 90 years old, about a year before she died, what happened to her. And it was so there is all these generations of people carrying all of this trauma without any resources, passing it on to their kids who became my parents. So you have it's a generational trauma is real. It gets passed on by how you interact with your children. It also there's science now that shows it gets passed on through the womb. And so my siblings and I were dealt a hand because my parents were also dealt a hand. And so when it came to, I got to a point when I grew up and realized, and this happened in stages, I hit my point at 50 where I had the big boom moment, but I had been starting to do this in piecemeal ways starting in my 20s. Like, I want to break these generational traumas.
In your 20s, I think that makes a key difference, because I'm not a therapist, but I do go to therapy and I learn from my therapist as well. So what I do know, that you don't recognize trauma if it doesn't present it in a way that's known as trauma. It's almost normalized. So normalized behavior is what I'm saying. So what was the behavior patterns that you was displaying that still were the same behavior patterns of the past, and then we can move forward to when was that aha moment, this shit is fucked up?
Yeah. So when I was in college, I was 21 years old, and I had been dating who is my now husband. And I had, prior to him, been in a very unhealthy relationship that I thankfully got out of after 3.5 years. A lot of the same dynamics as existed between my mom and dad. And I recognized, nope, that's not what I want. I'm going to do different. Got out of that. But in dating my husband, what became apparent is that I was very dependent on him to be my gear towards happiness. I didn't have the concept that I was responsible and could be responsible for my own happiness. I didn't need a relationship or a man in my life to deem me valuable, to deem me worthy. And so about 6 months into our relationship, he's like, I love you, but this pressure that is on me to be your happiness arc, I can't live up to that. And I'm breaking up with you, not because I don't love you, but I need you to figure out how to make yourself happy, that you don't need me to be happy. You don't need anybody.
Were you a case of codependency?
Oh, big time.
Or abandonment issues, or a combination of both?
Codependency, trauma bonds, invalidation. Yeah, because love was showed from my family. I received love when I performed well, when I was the good girl, when I did everything for everybody else. I was called selfish when I challenged, when I'm like, should I be doing this as a 10-year-old? I want to go do this. Whenever I challenged anything that didn't feel right to me, I was selfish. So it was very clear to me, performance and good grades and being successful and not challenging and not asking questions and serving everybody else was how I received affirmation. And the fact that if you didn't have a man in your life, if you weren't going to be a mother, then you had no value. And so that ability to understand that, no, I'm valuable because I was born. And those things don't dictate my value. So my husband, for all the things that he had to work through in his own life, he had a lot of wisdom in terms of what he saw. So we broke up. I was destroyed. No one had ever talked to me like that before and presented that to me. I got into therapy through the person I was working for at the time. She's like, I think you need to talk to somebody. I think what you've been through growing up and the system that you came up in is more traumatic than you realize. And so I started therapy and he's just like, tell me about your life. Tell me how you grew up. Tell me what it was like. And at the end of that session, he's like, I'm going to say something to you that's going to come as a shock, but you have been mentally and emotionally abused your whole life. And I was shocked. Like, I could not comprehend that what I had experienced was abuse, because it was not only normalized in my own home, I saw it a lot around me in my family system, period. And even in other homes with other people. I think there's just a lot of generational things that happen. And so that was just blew my mind, because to me, abuse was somebody hit you or somebody sexually assaulted you. That's it. Those were abuse. And my dad really wore like kind of a badge of honor that I've never hit a woman and I will never hit a woman, even though he verbally and emotionally battered my mother all the time. And so that took me aback and really set me on that. I call chapter 1 of my journey. There's 3 chapters. Chapter 1 was that realization, naming it, and really realizing, wait a minute, I need to just really get to know me and get really comfortable with me. Mm-hmm. And know that and really own and be accountable for my healing and my happiness. I don't have to continue down this road. I can make different decisions.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's good.
When your first husband, you was married twice, right?
No, I'd been in a long-term relationship for 3.5 years. We never married, but I got out of it.
The guy that broke up with you, he's the one that said you need to figure out what you need to do.
Yeah, and he's now my husband. But yes, we were broke up for 9 months.
Then you got back together.
Yeah, and I will tell you, at the time we did, I didn't see it coming. What I didn't know, we were in a small college town. He had been kind of observing me from afar, mm-hmm. and just seeing me just do the work of becoming my own person. And when he would reach out in different ways, how I responded was like, I really started like, if you want to reach out to me and talk to me, then we have to, lay down some expectations here, because I'm not going to just let you in and out of my life. It broke my heart when you left. And just me having that language, because the me that he'd met before would have just taken him back no matter what. Like, I wouldn't have asked questions. I wouldn't have laid down any expectations or boundaries. I would have just like, please come back. Whereas now I was like, no. If we're going to have a conversation, then I need to understand what your end game is here. I need to explain to you where I am and then decide whether this is the right move forward. And for him, he was like, you did it. You did the work. You understood what it was I was asking. I didn't think you would ever get there. So then we started talking, and eventually, and we got back together. But it was his wisdom in understanding that, which came from, he came from a very different dynamic than I did growing up. There were no gender roles in his family.
How difficult was it for you to do that? And how did you know what steps to take to get you to even, because let me go back a minute. Let me go back. We talked about the norm. You only knew the norm. He saw the dysfunction.
Yeah.
How did you know how to put the right program in place to get to where you at, so he can see where you at? Just coming up with a formatting a question, hey, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to sell me.
Yeah.
So what were the systems that you use, and how did you come up with the systems?
Yeah. So first of all, was getting into therapy and helping someone see my story from a different lens, from an adult who had, was trained and had experience. And that allowed me to really see my world for what it was, and to understand, no, I don't want the same life as I grew up in, but I have to actually take action steps to make that happen. And so what kind of things can I do moving forward to ensure? And let me tell you, I'm 56. I've been through a lot. That was the most difficult 9 months of my life. I was destroyed. I probably spent the first 6 to 8 weeks of that. When I wasn't in class or at work, I was on my best friend's apartment bedroom floor crying, like just distraught. She was worried about me to the point that when we got back together, she was very protective of me. We grew up together since third grade. She knew my family dynamic. She actually introduced me to this guy. She was friends with my husband, and they were good friends. And she was like, I don't know if I'm okay with you letting him back in, because I saw how destroyed you were. And she came to understand over time that I had to do this. And I had to go through this, and somebody had to call it out to me. And she later was like, I was too close to you to ask that of you, because I've been with you since third grade through all of it. And she understood later, but she took her time to be okay with him coming back in, because she was the one picking up the pieces with me. Until she finally, and she was one of the important people along the way that just looked at me in the eye, and she's like, we got to get you moving forward. You are stuck. And we got to get you moving forward. You don't have to date somebody else, but you got to get up and you got to start taking steps. So her support and the support of my therapist, that two-pronged thing. And also, I'm very competitive. And so there was something in me that wanted to prove to him that I could do this.
Now, what was it? What is it about him that's Mr. Magic?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, he was the first male in my life who actually authentically cared about who I was as a person. He was the first person I could be myself with. I didn't have to apologize for, oh my gosh, I'm late. Oh my gosh, does this look okay on me? He's like, why are you asking me if what you're wearing is looking okay on you? If you're happy in it, I'm happy in it. I don't care. I mean, he genuinely, I never...
Laid back guy, like...
Yeah.
Over worrying about things that you shouldn't be worrying about. Enjoy life.
Exactly. Yeah. And he saw that. He was the first person that I felt like loved me for me. Like he just saw me, but he also knew, and I think this is an important lesson for men and women to understand. If you are looking to a relationship to provide your happiness, that's not going to work. That's just, at some point, or it's going to be very unhealthy. You need to know how to be responsible for your own happiness. Now, it can add to your happiness. It can broaden your happiness. You can do life together in a way, but to expect any relationship or person to be the one who makes you happy, and without them, you can't be happy, that's not a healthy dynamic. And so I always, when I'm working with women today, I'm like, and this starts with knowing your own value. If I know my own value, if I know my value doesn't ebb and flow by my roles, by how well I perform, by what I look like, by how successful I am by the world standards, if I understand that, then I will determine who and what gets allowed into my life based on whether they're honoring my value or not.
You deal with a lot of women.
Yeah.
And stuff. What are the three biggest handicaps that these women are going through when you're dealing with this type of trauma? Because you got different layers. You got let me thank you for the download. Let me go back. Which is the most prevalent issues that you deal with? Is it the abandonment issue woman? Is it the validation woman? Is it the codependent woman? Is it the woman who has all this and developed the narcissistic woman?
It is probably the codependent woman.
Why do you say that?
Because most women I work with are very focused on people pleasing and very focused and not disappointing people. Mm-hmm. And so their relationship, they depend on the people they're in relationship with to let them know whether they've failed them or not. Instead of just being like, I'm going to do the best I can with what I have to give. And if that doesn't work for that person, then that is not my issue. That's their issue. That doesn't mean I failed. And we'll work through it and we'll talk about it. But if someone is asking me to abandon myself in order to make them happy, then that's a problem. And so most women I work with and talk to are abandoning themselves regularly to make sure everybody else in their life is happy or happy with them, and not stopping to consider, am I happy with me? Does this feel honoring to me? So that is definitely what I see most often is so prevalent.
What about the women? And I hear this so much.
Yeah.
I don't need a man. I don't want a man. I don't need a man. I'm like, how do you even come up with that rationality way of thinking unless you look deeper inside yourself and ask yourself? I remember asking somebody on the show one time, I was like, how did you even come up with that analogy? You don't need a man. Yeah.
I think that comes from, probably 15 to 20 years ago, especially when I was raising my kids. We went through this arc of time of we wanted women to be independent. And we took it to a point where we forgot to talk about the fact that as humans, we need each other. We need human connection. We thrive off human connection. And so I think it's important for women to believe a relationship doesn't define your value. That doesn't mean it doesn't add value to your life. And so we can't become so we can't look for it to be like, okay, if I don't have a partner or a husband, I have no value, but also not shut it down to a point that it's a sign of weakness if you do decide to get in a relationship. Because what I try to talk to women is like, be open to what's possible for you. If a relationship comes and you guys you click, it works well, you honor each other, embrace that opportunity for love and connection. But don't force it because you think you need it to be valuable. or to meet a family expectation. And so I think we talked about one part and really focused on that and didn't talk about the whole package of, as women and as men, let's grow up and be strong and confident in our own value. And when we connect with someone, it's like you be open to that and look for that, but don't shut it off as like, well, I don't need, I can take, I'll use myself. I can totally take care of myself. When my husband and I came back together, we came back together because we authentically loved each other. I both knew I didn't need him to be happy, and I knew that so I was choosing him rather than needing him.
You choose him because you saw the alignment and the development potential of
exactly
future, right? The trauma can be neutralized or basically resolved with him by your side versus him not being by your side. So let me go back.
Yeah.
When you don't know what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
Let me try to say this the right way. When should a male or female, because you deal with both, mainly female, what are signs for females to know that they need assistance like what you have?
I think it's when I tell people all the time, you need to listen and trust your instincts. If you're feeling unsettled, and this sounds and this requires some curiosity within yourself, but if you look at your life on paper and you realize, I have everything on paper that tells me I should be happy. I have the successful job, the nice house, the great car, the fabulous neighborhood, a wonderful group of friends. But there's something's not right. That's when you need to start like, what's off? What's out of alignment? And that curiosity piece, because it requires, but we have to be willing to listen to it, because sometimes we just push it away, and we think there's something wrong with us, or we push it away, or I have no reason to be unhappy. If there's an angst there, then there's something out of alignment. So let's get curious about that. And I always start with people. I start with, let's start unpacking your layers and get curious about where this is coming from. But that curiosity piece and being willing to pay attention to the angst is really kind of where this comes in.
Before we wrap up, let's go back a minute real quick. You talked about therapy, and I'm a big believer in that. You know, I mean, culturally, the old school mindset, non-existent.
Yeah.
Taboo.
Oh yeah. Crazy people go to therapy.
Yeah. When I went, it was a game changer. It aligned with my purpose.
Yeah.
It strengthened the purpose. And let me explain to you what I'm talking about, because I like to use myself for an example, and I'm going to flip it over to you, and that way it makes sense. I'm always dealing with people as a trainer. I'm always adapting by listening to what they want. They want to lose weight. They want to build muscle. My job is to listen, create, and make it happen. It took therapy to say, Dre, you do this on a daily basis, but you don't know the type of people that you're dealing with. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you got a person that may have abandonment issues. You got a person that may have narcissistic personality. You have a person that may have codependent. I was dealing with these people every day as a trainer.
Yeah.
I knew how to navigate them, because I didn't have to deal with them after an hour.
Sure.
But I knew how to do it. But he was like, now you have to deal with that in your own relationship. So what I'm saying with this is it relates to what you're talking about. Going to a therapist, Steve Cooper and Dr. Raul Santa Maria, taught me the ability to relate to everybody, because you're not going to be able to talk to somebody who has, let me rephrase this. If I know you have abandonment issues, I know how to relate to you.
Yeah.
If I don't, then there's always a disconnect.
Yeah.
This is called human communication across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Going to therapy gave me the resources to be able to talk to any person once I knew what they were able to go through. And I think in today's society, until you understand that, you're always going to have continuous situations, trauma,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in your program when you're dealing with people? I call it like this. Thank you for the download. You got to meet people where they're at. And in order to meet people where they're at, I need to be educated to know where they're at.
Yeah.
Almost being a therapist, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. I'm always clear with people that I'm not a therapist, but I may wake up things in you that realize you need some therapy. And then my framework's going to be here to support you as a resource as you're working through these things. But I do something a little bit different, and it always catches people off guard at first because they don't see the connection until they do later. So I start with 3 basic questions. I ask them, name 5 activities that nourish you. Describe to me who you are as a person by your character traits, not your roles, not your titles, not what you do, but who you are as a person. And then tell me 5 words on how you want to feel this next 6 months. It's a very non-threatening way to get people to stop and be present with themselves and to think about. And I tell them, you can't go ask someone else for these answers. Yeah. You have to provide. You don't know.
GPT.
Yeah, exactly. No ChatGPT, no partner asking, husband asking, wife asking, none of that. You've got to answer these for yourself. That then gives me a clue to who they are as a person. And once they can kind of see that connection of how this connects them to themselves, connects them to what they value, connects them to what they care about, we've established a line of communication and trust. It then opens the door to ask more intentional questions. It gives them a view into their life. And let me tell you, most people, when I ask them to describe themselves by their character traits, they start telling me their titles and roles. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I want adjectives.
Explain to the viewers that particular question, because that's key. And you know what? I heard that. You know where I heard that at? Anger Management.
Oh, yeah.
The movie. And he kept he kept telling him, says, tell me blah, blah, blah. And he kept saying, he said, well, I don't know what the fuck you want me to say.
That's so true. And I have a PDF, and I can send it to you. You can put it in the show notes where I give examples because it throws people. So when I you tell me character traits that describe you. So for me, it's passionate, empathetic, curious, stubborn, intentional. So those are some examples. And then when you do that, then the light bulb goes on. Oh, that's what you mean. No one ever asks anyone that. When we introduce ourselves, we start telling people all the things we do, but very rarely does someone ask us who we are. And the fact that someone cares enough to be curious about who we are opens the door for more intentional conversations, questions. It establishes trust.
It's so funny because I literally just gave that scenario to a guest on the last show. And it amazes me the process abilities that we have is almost like matrixized. That is, people don't know how to. Let me rephrase because I don't want to make like that everybody is. This is a show for dummy type thing. It's just really, I don't think people have really taken an inner look at themselves and asked themselves that question. Who am I?
Yeah. And if we don't know who we are, we can't live in alignment with ourselves, which then impacts how we show up in the world. It impacts how we show up in relationships. And so it really does start with us knowing who we are. When we can be curious about that and understand that we are more empathetic and curious about others as well.
what do you, before we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for being patient. First,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, we get busy here.
I get it.
Well, you got a podcast, you know what
I know exactly. Yep.
This is our busy season. I love it.
Yeah.
But through all that you've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
what's your purpose now? What's your purpose?
My purpose is to help, my focus is women, but my purpose is women know that they're valuable because of who they are. They're worthy, not by what they do every day, how much they produce, what their roles are, but because they exist as a human in the world and that they get to choose. They get to choose what they care about. They get to choose who they interact with. They get to choose if they want to change and show up differently. And no matter what has happened to them, we always have a choice within that how to respond. We can decide we're going to take the things that happen to us and stay stuck and continue traumas and be a victim, or we can choose to be proactive and seek ways to be healthier because we're worthy of that. And also, we want to be able to break those generational traumas and move forward and offer more for the people that we are in relationship, especially if we become parents. So I really want people to know they're valuable, they're worthy, they get to choose.
If you didn't have the support and the insight of your friend, if you didn't have the insight and support of your current husband, what do you think your life would have been? I know it's hypothetical.
Yeah. I will tell you, Andre, that question terrifies me, honestly. I will tell you that after I got out of that 3.5-year very unhealthy relationship, I was very conscious that I didn't want that, but I still wasn't aware of the work I needed to do on myself in order to show up healthy in a relationship. So without those people there, both holding me accountable and picking me up and telling me, okay, it's time to start moving forward, I'm not sure where I would have ended up on that trajectory. I think I would have figured it out at some point, but it's also very possible I would have ended up in another, even if the person I was with wasn't unhealthy, the way I would have been very codependent within that relationship would have been very unhealthy.
Wow. How can the viewers, first, let me say thank you for taking time out to come on the show and share such a great story and resource for people as well. How can the viewers reach out to you, support you, and know more about your program and your podcast?
Absolutely. Go to embracinglayers.com. It's all there. Fill out the contact form if you want access to my resources. You can also look at them on the website. There's online courses. There's one-on-one empowerment sessions. I could come speak to you. I have the Feel podcast. I have a book. I have a women's panel show. My goal is to have as many resources for women as possible to meet them where they are. So go to embracinglayers.com. It's all there.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you click, subscribe, follow, touch that button. Remember, all it takes is one click to change the difference in your life and somebody else's life. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.